Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. IRS-CI counts down the top 10 cases of 2021. But first, an attempt at a joke. I apologize in advance. The IRS is attempting to take all my money again. But I'm not worried, and I'm completely calm. Although my tax skills are totally irritated. I'll tell you what, it's not easy being completely calm when you've got such mad skills. Mad's often not good when it comes to emotions. But mad is badass when it comes to skills, and as we all know, badass is good. So the trick is to irritate the skills to the point where they become mad skills, while at the same time remaining completely calm. Cases include tax evasion, Ponzi schemes, COVID fraud, cyber crimes. IR 2022-04, January 7, 2022, Washington. The Internal Revenue Service Criminal Investigation, IRS-CI, began counting down the top 10 cases for calendar year 2021 on its Twitter account on January 3rd. I love the idea that the IRS has a Twitter account and they're going to tell us who they took money from so we can all mob them and laugh at them and whatnot to do the whole mobbing thing or whatever. I don't have a Twitter account, but if anybody's following the Twitter account and I'm missing out on something, then let me know in the comments here. But in any case, these cases include the agency's most prominent and high-profile investigations of 2021. Quote, the investigative work of 2021 has all the makings of a made-for-TV movie. So now they're marketing themselves, the IRS, to get a movie deal on this. On the Twitter, it looks like. Might be interesting. Could be better than the stuff that's currently out there, it seems to me. But in any case, embezzlement of funds from a nonprofit, a family fraud ring that stole millions in COVID relief funds, and a $1 billion Ponzi scheme used to buy sports team and luxury vehicles. But this is real life, and I'm grateful to our IRS-CI agents for pursuing these leads and ensuring that the perpetrators were prosecuted for their crimes, end quote, said IRS-CI Chief Jim Lee. The top 10 IRS-CI cases of 2021 include number 10, Albuquerque couple sentenced to federal prison in Ayudando Guardians case. Suzanne Harris and William Harris were sentenced to 47 and 15 years in federal prison, respectively. They stole funds from Ayudando Guardians Incorporated, a nonprofit organization that provided guardianship and conservatorship and financial management to hundreds of people in the special needs. Rochester man going to prison and ordered to pay millions in restoration for his role in Ponzi scheme that built investors out of millions of dollars. John Pacarato Jr. was sentenced to 84 months in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution totaling $19,842,613.66. Don't forget the 66 cents. After he was convicted of conspiracy to commit mail fraud and filing a false tax return. He conspired with others to obtain money through an investment fraud Ponzi scheme. Orlando sister sentenced to $25 million tax fraud scheme. Patra Gomez and her co-conspirator, her sister, Jacqueline Lumaxo, were sentenced to 8 and 4 years in federal prison, respectively. They operated a tax preparation business with 5 locations in Central Florida that filed more than 16,000 false tax returns for clients from 2012 to 2016, with a total estimated loss to the IRS of $25 million. Number 7, Russian bank founder sentenced for evading exit tax upon renouncing U.S. citizenship. Oleg Tenkov, I said that completely wrong. Oleg Tenkov was ordered to pay more than $248 million in tax and sentenced to time served and 1 year of supervised release after he renounced his U.S. citizenship in an effort to conceal large stock gains that were reportable to the IRS after the company he founded became a multi-billion-dollar publicly traded company. Number 6, Ontario man who ran multi-million-dollar unlicensed Bitcoin exchange business sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. Hugo Sergio Mejia, I completely butchered that name, but was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison and required to forfeit all assets derived from running an unlicensed business that exchanged at least $13 million in Bitcoin and cash, and vice versa, often for drug traffickers. He charged commissions for the transactions and established separate companies to mask his true activity. Number 5, owner of Bitcoin exchange sentenced to prison for money laundering. Russian Rosin G. Losafex, once again, I got the name wrong, I'm sure. A Bulgarian national was sentenced to 121 months in federal prison for participating in a scheme where popular online auction and sales websites such as Craigslist and eBay falsely advertised high-cost goods, typically vehicles, that did not actually exist. Once victims sent payments for the goods, the conspiracy engaged in a complicated money laundering scheme where U.S.-based associates were accepted victim frauds, convert these funds to cryptocurrency, and transfer the cryptocurrency to foreign-based money launderers. Whew. Number 4, ex-pastor of Orange County Church sentenced to 14 years in federal prison for orchestrating $33 million con that defrauded investors. Kent R.E. Whitney, the ex-pastor of the Church of Health Self, was sentenced to 14 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $22.66 million in restitution to victims after defrauding investors of $33 million by orchestrating a church-based investment scam. At his direction, church representatives appeared on television and at live seminars to make false and misleading claims to lure investors to invest in church entities. Victims sent more than $33 million to the church and received fabricated monthly statements reassuring them that their funds had been invested when in reality little to no money ever was. Number 3, Prairie Village man sentenced to 12 years for $7.3 million payday loan fraud, $8 million tax evasion. Joel Tucker was sentenced to 12 years and 6 months in federal prison and ordered to pay over $8 million in restitution to the IRS after selling false information or fictitious debts to payday loan businesses and not filing federal tax returns for himself or his business with the IRS for multiple years. Number 2, DC solar owner sentenced to 30 years in prison for billion-dollar Ponzi scheme. Jeff Karpoff, the owner of California-based DC Solar, was sentenced to 30 years in federal prison and forfeited $120 million in assets to the U.S. government for victim restitution after creating a Ponzi scheme that involved the sale of thousands of manufactured mobile solar generator units, MSGs, that didn't exist. He committed account and lease revenue fraud and purchased a sports team, luxury vehicles, real estate, and an NASCAR team with the proceeds. 1. San Fernando Valley family member sentenced to years in prison for fraudulently obtaining tons of millions of dollars in COVID relief. I mean, it's just kind of funny at this. It's sad, but it's kind of funny. Okay, the Avanzan family received sentences ranging from 17.5 years in prison to 10 months in probation for crimes ranging from bank and wire fraud to aggravated identity theft. The family used the stolen and fictitious identities to submit 150 fraudulent applications for COVID relief funds based on phony payroll records and tax documents to the Small Business Administration. I mean, you knew that was kind of thing was going to happen with these, but in any case, and then used the funds they received to purchase luxury homes, gold coins, jewelry, designer, it's always that they always have to then go purchase the stuff. That's really what gets them, isn't it? When you watch all the movies, it's like, then they go buy like this fancy stuff and they're like, hey, wait a second, something crazy is happening. Anyway, jewelry, designer, handbags, and more. Richard Avazayan and his wife, Terabalian, cut their ankle monitoring devices and absconded prior to their sentencing hearing. They are currently fugitives, so they took off, okay? Follow IRS-CI on Twitter. So here's their Twitter account. You can check this interesting stuff up. There's a link to their Twitter. Their Twitter handle is at irs.ci. Again, if you're enjoying their Twitter handle and I'm missing out, maybe I should get on the Twitter, but I'm kind of scared of it. Twitter scares me. That little bird is kind of scary. Any case, IRS-CI is the criminal investigative arm of the IRS responsible for conducting financial crime investigations, including tax frauds, narcotics trafficking, money laundering, public corruption, healthcare fraud, identity theft, and more. IRS-CI special agents are the only federal law enforcement agents with investigative jurisdiction over violations of the Internal Revenue Code, boasting a nearly 90% federal conviction rate. The agency has 20 filed offices located across the U.S. and 11 attack posts abroad. So there's links to the Twitter handle here, and there'll be a link to this in the description.